Hey there folks, Aldershot here, and today we're going to do an early impression on H1Z1, developed by Sony Online Entertainment, and on sale on Steam's Early Access at the regular price of $20 USD. Alright, so if you're unfamiliar with H1Z1, it's essentially the latest in open world zombie survival, so kind of think DayZ, but newer, if you will. Now, I do want to give a special shout out to Voidfox, who was the very nice gent who gifted this game to me because I am poor and he's a really nice guy. We did a Let's Play together, and I believe it's already up on the channel if my scheduling is correct. So check that out if you haven't already. We had a bit of a larf. Alright, but anyways, we're going to get into this game. Now, when you jump into the game, there is no options menu to speak of. Alright, you actually have to get into a server, load into a game before you have access to the options menu. It's one of those games. It's a little bit clunky, I'm not a big fan of it, but this is early access after all, so these things are kind of expected. And speaking of which, because this is early access, and because this is like day 2 of its release, do understand that by the time you watch this, things could have very well have changed, so definitely check the Steam's official page on H1Z1, just so you're up to date, alright? The version I'm looking at will be listed in the description. Anyways, we're going to load into a server that we've already been playing. Let's see if I can remember what server that was. Now, the nice thing about the server list is if you have a character already on the server, there'll be a green dot indicating that yes, you have a server there. And I believe Ttwitch was the game that was playing, so we'll join that one, just like that. Now, the first day that this game was released on Steam, it was a bit of a horror show. People couldn't even log in. Alright, the servers were pretty much down for the entire day, and at worst, you couldn't even sign up because the servers were so bad. And when they did fix the server issues, there was a lot of loot issues as well, where loot just wasn't spawning. Now, luckily, they've actually fixed a lot of these major issues within the first 24 hours of the game. This is day 2 of its release, and I have to say, it's a lot more stable. I did suffer a crash, which is a bit unfortunate, but it was only after about 4 hours of play, and I believe it was just that one area that was kind of bugged because my cohorts that I was playing with also crashed in the same area. So do keep that in mind. But, you know, like I said, after even just one day, after 24 hours, they managed to fix the login issues, they managed to fix most of the server issues, and loot started spawning again, which is nice, okay? Now, as you can see, you might notice the screen kind of jittering, almost like it's skipping a lot of frames. That's not really the game, or that's not really my recording's fault. In order to pick up, you know, these berries, which is essentially food, or anytime you press E to pick up anything, for whatever reason, the game stutters. So I'm tapping E, and as you can see, it's almost like the frames are being cut in half. It's a bit of a bug. I'm pretty sure they're aware of it, but do know that it does exist, at least in the current version that I'm playing. It's a minor annoyance, to be honest. So, as you can see, H1Z1 is pretty much what you would expect from a open world zombie survival game. And it'll come with all those kind of tropes and elements that you would expect from these kind of games. A lot of open world, a lot of searching for resources so you don't starve to death. And there is a hydration bar, there is a stamina bar, there's an energy bar, which represents how hungry you are, and a health bar. Again, things that you've come to expect from these sorts of survival games. But the thing that H1Z1 tends to try to do anyways, that's a little bit different from the competitors, is that they seem to be combining what they consider the best elements of many open world survival games. For example, in Rust you can build shelters out of trees and all that stuff, right? Wood that you find from from harvesting them. You can do that in this game as well. If you can find a fire axe, you can actually chop down trees, kind of like in the forest, which is actually one of the coolest aspects of the forest. And of course you have your urban dystopian apocalyptic setting that you would find in DayZ. And look, deer. There's also a bit of wildlife which you would find in Rust. So it seems like this game is kind of trying to take some of the more known aspects of other known survival games. Hey buddy, friendly. You friendly too? Alright, cool. Well, I'm gonna move on and I'll see you later. Nice meeting you, Steve. Or Slave, or Sleeve. So that's, you can talk to people by holding the middle mouse button. And it's a good idea, generally speaking. I have noticed the population of this game actually relatively friendly in comparison to other survival games, just like that. Me and that random Steve guy, we saw each other and we didn't kill each other, which is actually a little bit unexpected when I jumped into this game. Now that could be because loot, even though it is fixed, as I mentioned before, it is still pretty scarce. So guns and weaponry is rather rare. Even though he was holding his machete, he still decided not to kill me. So I'm not really sure what it is with the population of H1Z1, but I have to admit, a lot of the players here seem to be relatively friendly. I haven't seen a lot of KIS, as in kill in sight, or kill on sights. So that's actually a cool thing, and hopefully this game can harbor that sort of community. It definitely makes for more interesting gameplay than just basically a glorified, you know, Counter-Strike game, which unfortunately a lot of these survival games kind of turn into. So hopefully H1Z1 can have that to separate itself from its competitors, because I'm honestly just sick of getting killed every time I see a player. I'd rather interact with them and see if I can do some cool stuff with them, right? So as you can see, I'm using a bow, and I crafted this, and there is a crafting system, much like you'll find in other open world survival games. And the bow will probably be one of the first things that you craft. You basically just need some cloth and some sticks, which you can find in the woods. And I totally missed. I got one shot left, which is not great. I'm gonna have to make some more arrows. And you can make arrows, of course. Oh god. Get my stick out. Beat him over the head. There we go. I'm probably gonna have to heal up with some gauze as well. I'm not looking so pretty in the health department. Oh god, the zombie's not dead. That's not good. I'm at 3% health. That's another thing about the zombies in this game. They don't always stay dead just because they're down, which is actually something I kind of like about this game. It adds a degree of suspense to it as well, which is nice. So there you go. You know, just some crafting, just some survival stuff that you would expect. It's an open world zombie survival game, so like there's really not that much more I can say about it. It's cool that you can chop down trees and use the material to build stuff. It's cool that, you know, all this stuff is in here. But what really separates this game apart, as I mentioned before, it seems to be, you know, the combination of all these things, and so far the community of H1Z1, the very fact that people aren't just going to kill you on sight from the looks of it is a good thing. Now that could very well change, you know, as this game grow and more mechanics is added to it. I'm sure the foundation of the social structures of this game will change with it as well, so we'll see how that goes. So it's not a terrible take on the open world survival game. It's definitely a bit of a contender as far as this genre is concerned. And one thing that's really odd, though, I find about H1Z1 is that this isn't an indie game. This is actually, you know, Sony Online Entertainment. So this is a AAA company that's making this game, and it's on early access, which I find a little bit odd. Because, you know, let's face it, early access is usually dominated by the indie scenes, usually indie games that are on early access. So I find it really odd that a large company like Sony has kind of tried this whole early access thing out. I don't really have too much criticisms on that. I mean, they're free to use it as much as indies, of course. It's just a very odd thing to see that. That's the only thing, right? And it definitely shows that it is in early access. You know, there's definitely a lot of tweaking that needs to be done. Like I said, I did suffer a crash bug, which is a bit unfortunate. It looks like we got a less friendly person. Yo, dude, I'm friendly. You don't have to kill me. There you go. That's right. Let's be friends, all right? I'm gonna just run off this way. You're gonna run off that way. We're all good. I gotta watch that guy. Even though I did mention most of the community is friendly, you still probably in your best. It's probably in your best bet to not trust everybody. All right. So there you go. I talked that guy down. He ran away. I'm gonna try and make my way out of the city because this is getting a bit dangerous. And I have to say, the city's actually pretty well designed as well. You know, it looks nice, that's for sure. It's not an overly well optimized game, though. That's the only thing. There will be certain sections of the game where you're going to see a fair amount of frame losses. But, you know, this is early access, so I guess these things are kind of expected. But the game also requires you to pay money for it, so I don't think it's unjustified to mention these things. Alright, that's the same guy who's trying to shoot us. Like I said, we're going to make our way out of the city because it's too dangerous, and we need to find berries. So far, I haven't actually found a lot of food in the world. The only food that I've managed to find are blackberries in the forest, so that's really your best bet to kind of find food through these blackberry bushes here. They also refill your hydration bar as well, so it's kind of doing double duty, alright? Now, I mentioned this game does have a crafting system. I'm going to quickly show you that once I consider it safe. So we're going to just prone down here as to not get our asses kicked. So here's our crafting. One cool thing is there's actually a discovery menu here where, let's say I'll put in 2 scraps of cloth and it'll tell me how much more I need to find the next crafting recipe. Let's say I put in sugar. I need 6 more pieces to find that one. Empty bottle, anything I can find here? No, I need another piece. How about the pipe? Right here. I won't give you an example, no. It looks like I won't be able to give you an example exactly, but basically when you find raw materials, you put it in here in any combination, it'll give you a recipe, and once you get the recipe, you can go into the crafting, and you can make stuff, just like that. I'm going to make some arrows because I'm completely out of arrows, just like that. Which is actually kind of cool. I like that. And when you find different tools, like you can find a fire axe, you can actually chop down these big old trees here. And you can harvest wood in which you can use to create other things as well. And from what I hear, there is actually a fair amount of things to craft. Things from shelter, to doors, to barricades, to weapons. You can actually create a gun. And there's vehicles in this game already. You do need certain materials, of course, to you know, have the vehicle working. You'll need fuel and engine parts and all that kind of good stuff. But it's nice to see that they have working vehicles on day 1, which is something that the official DayZ game didn't even have, right? So as far as an open world survival game, I'm kind of enjoying H1Z1, to be completely honest, especially now that they've stabilized the game. I certainly was not enjoying it on day 1. Worst login simulator ever, as in I tried for like an hour and couldn't log in. I saw a lot of my Steam friends try for even longer than that and could not log in, but like I said, they managed to patch a lot of these serious issues within the very first 24 hours. So I have to give my kudos to the developers for listening to the fans and kind of working their ass off to get this game up to shape into a playable state, which I have to say is pretty playable right now. Now, something else I kind of want to talk about in H1Z1 is the pay model. Now that it's in early access, it's 20 bucks, right? And that's fairly reasonable, but I believe once the game is actually out and available to the general public outside of early access, I believe they are going to be going with the free-to-play model, okay? And we're already starting to see signs of that. If you see over here on the left side of the menu, there are certain things that you can buy. You can buy with real money. Now, there are airdrops in this game, much like Rust. And unlike Rust, though, that happens randomly, you actually have to call the airdrops yourself. And in order to get the airdrops, you have to pay real life money for. Alright? Now the airdrops anyone can actually get. That's the trick, right? That's what I guess you can say kind of balances pay model out. But I believe the person who calls it does get a slight advantage over the rest. We're going to just keep eating food here. So, is it pay to win? You know, I haven't played it enough to make that kind of statement. I can say there is definitely a pay feature, and those pay features definitely does have an effect on the core gameplay. In fact, if people didn't pay for the airdrops, they wouldn't happen at all in this game. So that's almost a core mechanic that you have to pay for, or at least other people have to pay for. So do keep that in mind as well. And I believe there are also keys that unlocks crates, and I believe the crates are only cosmetic items from my understanding. I could be wrong on this, but cosmetic items, generally speaking, are pay-only features. So do be wary of that. I don't know how far they'll push this model, but it is one of those wait-and-see things. It's not really something I'm looking forward to be completely honest. I'd much rather a one-time pay model than a continuous updates sort of scheme, or maybe some patches, or maybe I don't know, a DLC. I'm okay with DLC, but free-to-pay models are something you really have to be careful with, especially with games like this. Some games do it well. I can't really state whether H1Z1 is doing it well or fairly quite yet. I'm simply just not experienced enough with this game to make that kind of judgment. I just want you folks to be aware that it is in this game, so it's something that I would recommend kind of looking into from other people perhaps, or maybe later on down the road. Something else I kind of want to talk about this game is obviously the visuals. As you can see, it's raining right now. And I have to say the game actually does a fairly good job of doing a whole dynamic weather thing. And just because it's raining right here in this part of the server doesn't mean every part of the server is going to be raining. When I was playing my game with Voidfox, we've noticed that I was in an area where it was pouring, right? But he was in an area where it was practically sunny. So it looks like rain isn't server-wide, it's actually localized from wherever the clouds are, which is actually kind of cool. I've also seen some pretty cool fog effects as well, and the nighttime, the daytime's done pretty well during the morning and the evening and all that stuff. You know, H1Z1, it's not the best looking game I've ever seen, but as far as open world survival games, it's a bit of a looker. It's not bad. It's actually a pretty decent looking game. And the weather effects are actually done fairly well. The rain could use a little bit of touching up here and there. As you see on the ground, it does look a little bit weird, but again, this is early access. So overall, what do I think of H1Z1? This is like day 2 of its release in early access, and I can see this game being updated a whole bunch. So it's hard to say whether this is going to be worth your while in the long run. Mostly because of the free-to-play model, but I can say this much. For the time being, as of this current version on day 2 of its early access Steam release, I'm having fun with H1Z1. I'm enjoying it. I haven't found the pay model to really hinder my enjoyment of the game. If anything, it's kind of enhanced it from other people calling in airdrops, and I've been kind of trying to rush to the airdrops before they can get it because I'm a jerk like that. Haven't been successful, but it adds a degree of enjoyment to the game for sure. And it's not a terrible looking game, as I mentioned. It's actually quite good looking for what it is. It's not perfect for sure. The loot is scarce right now. It is spawning, which is nice, but it is scarce. It's a little bit hard to find. It's one of those games that we have to wait and see. And honestly, I think the biggest factor whether this game will be worth your time is the pay model. When this game finally gets released as a free-to-play, you know. But since it's being produced by SOE, as in Sony Online Entertainment, it's done by a big AAA manufacturer or producer. So the fear of the game just stopping in production, like a lot of the open world survival games that are indie made, that fear is minimalized greatly, which is actually a good thing, of course. But of course, being SOE, a large, video game company, one also have to be wary of its pay model, as I'm sure the developers are here to make a great game, but the parent company might not be as interested in making a great game and might be a little bit more interested in making a large amount of money. But, you know, I'm not saying that that is the case. I'm just saying it is something to be wary of, and it's really hard to say how fair the pay model is in its current form. It is definitely going to be something that you're going to have to wait and see. So that's basically H1Z1, guys. Pretty interesting, and I have to say the community is pretty friendly from what I've seen. The game looks pretty alright. I'm enjoying it so far. If you enjoy open world zombie survival game, you might want to check out what H1Z1 is all about. It got a lot of the features that make a lot of open world survival games interesting, like crafting, cutting down trees, and, you know, having a large and active community and all that sort of stuff. So it has a lot going for it, even in this early stage. And again, the biggest deciding factor whether this is going to be actually worth your time and money will be time itself. You know, how this game will develop. And that's about it, folks. So if you found this informative, if you found this enjoyable in any way, you know, show me some love, like, share, fave, and comment. And if you haven't already, I would certainly appreciate it if you would subscribe and help this little old channel grow. That would be super duper cool. Anyways, folks, I'm going to get out of here and see if I can find some canned beans or something. Aldershot out.